Welcome to my neighborhood, where I'll interview several industry luminaries and interesting people who are changing the state of the art in accounting software technology. Some of my guests are CEOs of leading corporations that you may have already heard of, maybe you're already using their products, or I think will soon be using their products, as well as some interesting thought leaders who help us learn more about technology and how to put it to use. Today I have with me Greg LaFollette, a consultant, speaker, and acknowledged expert in the area of technology and accounting. Greg began his career in public accounting in 1972 in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where he still works and lives with his family. His latest passion is spending time with his 2-year-old granddaughter, Zoe. Throughout his career, he's been an advocate of technology and how it impacts the public accounting space. In 1999, he left public practice to become Vice President of Product Strategy for Thomson Reuters Creative Solutions. Then, after leaving Thomson in 2004, he became the executive editor of the CPA Technology Advisor magazine, which is now known as the CPA Practice Advisor. After building the magazine's writing team and technology reputation, he went on to become the Vice President of Product Strategy for CPA to Biz, a subsidiary of the AICPA. In 2010, Greg was named one of the CPA Practice Advisor's top 25 thought leaders, and in February 2011, he was named to the CPA Practice Advisors Hall of Fame. Welcome to the neighborhood, Greg.
Thanks, Doug. Good to be here.
Yeah, great. So I've known you a long time.
Sure.
You've been in the profession a long time, a little bit longer than me.
A lot longer than you.
So I look up to you, and I've got a few questions for you. If you were just starting out in this profession of accounting and consulting and technology, do you have specific advice that you could share with our audience that you would really help them get into the business?
I know you've heard me talk about this before, Doug. The idea of specialization. Mm-hmm. And when I first started practicing, I always tell everybody I specialized in clients that had this first 3 digits of a zip code,
Right.
because we were limited by geography because we didn't have the technology tools.
Right.
And if I were going to practice today, I would be hyper selective in the clients that I took. Mm-hmm. Especially when you're building a practice, you have the opportunity to be very selective. And once you're already in, it's a little hard to
Right.
to get rid of the people who are already paying your bills.
Yeah.
But if you can be very, very selective in that super specialization that people have been talking about, that's exactly what I would do.
So, and at the beginning, in other words, maybe I'm going to do restaurants. I'm going to just be the best restaurant or other vertical market space.
Yeah, but if I were going to do restaurants, there is a huge difference between a pizza Delco
Right.
and a fast food restaurant and an
franchise,
Applebee's
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and a fine dining.
Yeah.
So I want you to do fine dining restaurants.
I see.
Or
Right.
McDonald's franchisees.
Right.
I mean, I know a guy who built an entire practice around people that are running McDonald's stores.
Right.
And that's all he does.
Right.
And his joke is, I have a word that I use to describe people that don't have a McDonald's restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
I call them somebody else's client.
Okay, great. Well, and you touched on the geography part too.
Sure.
You said that you used to start with anybody in the first 3 letters
Right.
or numbers for your zip code.
Right.
So why don't you expand on that a little bit? Why was, how has that changed over the years?
Well, just the idea of specialization. We started our practice. We took the florist downtown who was across the street from the architect who, knew the landscaper,
Right.
who had the hardware store, and they were the people that we went to church with. They were the people that,
Right.
that you saw at Rotary Club, and that was the community.
Right.
And the commonality was we were all residents of the same place. We all
Right.
belong to the Chamber of Commerce. We've talked about,
Sure.
the idea of community. And I think community is still very, very, very important.
Right.
But it's not the same level for building a practice as it was 30 years ago.
Right. Yeah, because now we can do this remote access and serve clients internationally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can get to that uber specialization
Right.
So people begin to, and that's what Jeffrey Moore writes in the white paper he did for us, is, that people begin to seek you out as you are the super expert in this particular
Right.
vertical.
Right, and
so-
your peers,
Yeah.
the other accountants, will refer you business
Exactly,
too.
exactly.
You know,
It's got to be an area that's big enough to matter,
Right,
but small enough to control.
right, right, right.
So,
And to establish a reputation that is hard enough, big enough and hard enough, I
Right.
think,
Exactly.
to matter.
right.
So what's new in the profession, maybe in the past few years, that really just excites you? Like, I'm looking today, I'm starting a business you just talked about. Now I don't have to be 3 digits, I need to be specialized. What are some examples of some new technologies that really excites you,
Right.
that we can really rally around
Right.
in practice today?
We've had lots of new technology come along over the last 30 or 40 years.
Yeah.
And all of the technologies, in opinion with a very wide brush, but
Right.
all of the technologies have allowed practitioners to do what they've always done better and faster and cheaper.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, just in the last 4 or 5 years, with the explosion of dependable cloud-based technologies,
Yeah.
all of a sudden we can do things that we were never able to do.
Yeah.
We didn't have the connectivity, we didn't have,
Right.
the tools are amazing.
Yeah.
And it's a real game changer. It's not faster than the old way.
Right.
It's a whole new way.
It's a completely different,
Right, right.
I call it paradigm,
Yeah.
of thinking and everything.
Yeah. And there's no bar to entry.
Right.
Years ago, if you wanted to get in the profession, you had to buy an $80,000 mini computer.
Yeah, right.
And and then when we've gone down, now you have to buy an $80. I'd suggest maybe you spend more than 80, but for a couple $100, you could buy a pretty high-end
Yeah.
business grade router, which is
Yeah.
all you need, by the way.
Right.
That's all the equipment I want is
Right.
is my laptop and my router and a scanner.
Right.
I may actually get beat up enough to buy a real low-end printer.
Yeah, I got to print
Right.
sometime.
And charge $1 a piece for people who want to print
Right,
it.
right. Well, a lot of the technologies that you and I talk a lot about, they really don't have anything to do with debits and credits either. They have to do with the rest of this, the managing the firm or the client or the business process at the client's. So that's one of the things I've seen really change. We used to be so focused on just simply getting software to help us with the debits and credits and the reports.
Right.
So that's really gone.
Yeah. I like
crazy.
the idea of what people are calling, and I've heard you use the term,
Right.
the digital CPA. So it is a way of life.
Right.
So my technological New Year's resolution for 2014 was to make 50% of my scheduled business calls video calls.
Yeah.
So you and I do video calls,
all the time,
and
yeah.
they're far more effective.
Oh, yeah.
Far more effective. Some
Yeah.
business studies have said like 12 times more effective. I don't
Yeah.
know where they get that, except they look in my window and they see me looking at my email when I'm on a conference call.
Right. Yeah.
Not with you, with somebody else. But so things like that. Why wouldn't you use tools like that?
Yeah.
Amazing tools in
That are free.
VoIP.
Yeah.
They're essentially free.
Yeah, yeah.
There are some free consumer-based ones, and then
And
for
there's some you pay
$100 a
for.
year or
That's
something,
right.
you can buy business-grade stuff. Great VoIP tools for telephone
Right.
calls. All sorts of tools, and accountants should be using those to reach out and strengthen
Right.
the relationships.
Okay, but then maybe an accountant's listening. They're in the tax business. They're focused on just doing 1040s and maybe a few business returns. That's their life. They meet with their client once a year, maybe a couple
Shame
of
on
times.
them.
Well, shame on them. We're going to get to that.
Right.
But let's just say that's their point of view right now. Are you saying they should call the client and say, okay, go to your computer and let's do a web meeting with video? That seems like they're not going to go there, are they?
When I gave my example of my New Year's resolution,
Right.
it was my scheduled calls.
Mhm,
So I have
okay.
another philosophy on phone calls.
I see.
I would never pick up the phone and call somebody, ever.
Just out of the blue.
Just out of the blue.
Right.
Unless their house was on fire or something really serious. If somebody calls me and it's not scheduled, I go, what do you want?
Well, that's another huge change then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. We use IM.
Yeah.
So in fact, you're on my IM
Right,
list.
right.
So I look at my instant messaging list. I look down the list and it says there's somebody available.
Right.
I touch the button and I say, do you have time for a chat?
Yeah.
Do you have time for a call?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, then I call.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I will send an email or a text or something that says,
Right.
can we schedule a call for Tuesday morning?
Right, right.
You know?
And that actually makes a lot of people still very nervous about, oh, I don't want anybody on my IM. They're going to interrupt me all day long.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that?
And I hear that all the time, and it's bunk.
Yeah, they
Okay?
just don't do it.
I hear people all the time say, I don't want to. I know people, consultants, who won't give out their cell phone number
Right.
because they'll be, my cell phone number is on my web page. You Google me, you'll find my cell phone number in a heartbeat.
Right.
And I don't remember anybody other than some stupid telemarketer who's going to call me anyway.
Right.
I mean, the bad guys already have my number. I want the good guys to have my number.
I
I
want
want the
one of
good
those.
guys to be able to reach out.
Yeah.
So it's not an issue.
Yeah.
I have an IM list, and people are very respectful.
Yeah.
Very respectful.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying give it to everybody, but when you say to your client, I'm going to put you on my IM list.
Right.
Anytime you need me, you can just look and see if I'm busy. And if it says I'm available, just touch the button and boom, little window pops up on my screen, and Doug or Mary Ann or whomever says, hey Greg, do you have a minute? I got a question. That client loves me.
Okay, so getting back a little bit to your early career, did you ever have like this one moment where you just knew what you were going to do, and what was it that like spurred you on, and why accounting after all?
No, there was never a moment.
Mm-hmm.
I've been very, very lucky,
Mm-hmm.
and I pretty much followed the road of least resistance
Mm-hmm.
throughout my entire career, and I've been real fortunate because I've got to play in the profession kind of from all sides.
Right.
But no, I can't look back and say, where I wanted to end my career was, as a vice president with CPA to Biz.
Yeah.
Although that's a great spot to end your carear, and I'm
I'll say,
thrilled to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But no, I'd be lying if I said that was part of some great plan.
Yeah.
I'm not that clever.
Yeah. Well, so what kind of difficulties did you have to encounter along the way so you say least resistance, but there must have been some, I don't know, some tough spots. What do you do? What were
Well,
they?
I think there's probably two parts. I'm big, I'm loud, I'm opinionated, and I've heard throughout my entire professional life that I intimidate people.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, I don't know, how do I intimidate people? I'm a teddy bear.
You're a
But
harmless.
I'm harmless. I'm easy. I spent a lot of time early in my career worrying about what other people thought.
Right.
And then somewhere along the line, and I don't know where, I started figuring out, you know what? I really don't care what they think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then finally, and probably not long ago, I finally figured out that they weren't thinking about me anyway.
They were thinking about
So
themselves.
just
and
go
what
out
are
and
they gonna-
you do the best you can, and
Yeah.
you try to build community and have fun.
Yeah, yeah. So what was your first paid job?
I was a caddy at the country club.
Okay.
Yep. Big boys got to carry doubles.
Okay.
18-hole double, $5.
What's a double?
2 bags.
I guess
two
I
golfers
should know this.
You run over to one, and run over to the other. You carry 2 bags.
I see. Golf plays me. I don't play
Right.
golf.
Yeah.
No. It does play. I let it play me occasionally,
Right.
just
Understand.
because I got to do that. So, so you were a caddy. Now, were there any debits and credits involved, or? No?
Now there were swear words and divots.
Okay. I think it's McGladrey that's running a campaign right
they've
now.
They've got a great campaign.
By the way, that's your last club. I just think that's hilarious.
Right.
Talking about being the advisor, the trusted advisor. And
Exactly.
I think that really resonates.
And I was a trusted advisor back then. When you try to tell the guy, when he gets up there and he says, "Give me a 7-iron," and you go, you really want a 5-iron, you're not as good as you think.
That's right. That's right. It's we have to sometimes do that with clients.
Exactly.
Or to do it maybe.
Tell them
sometimes
what
tough
they
love.
need to know rather than what they think they want to know.
That's right. That's right. So, anyway, well, so have you ever fired yourself from a job?
I've fired myself, Doug, from pretty much every job I've ever had.
Really?
Yep. We formed our firm back in the late 70s, and when I went to leave practice in 1999, I fired myself as I was the managing partner and had probably the largest book of business. And I looked around and said, you know, the firm isn't going to be able to buy me and one of my other majority partners out
Right.
at the same time, and we're the same age. And Thompson wanted me to come to work for them, so I fired myself and
Yeah.
went to work for Thompson,
Yeah.
where I fired myself not long after that.
Yeah.
So,
So it was not really path of least resistance, but maybe of most opportunity.
there you go. That sounds so much nicer.
Yes.
I'm gonna go with that
Put a
from
positive
there on out.
spin on everything. Yeah. So you've been a mentor to a lot of people over your life, me included. It seems to be really important to you to identify stars and help them become more than what they ever could be. And I've met many of the people you've also mentored, and they're all very appreciative of what you've done for them, often that you didn't even know. And so I thank you for that. But why do you do that? What is it in you that wants to go give back or give to others and bring them up?
Well, thank you for that. That's very kind, and it's nice to hear. And I guess I do that. I enjoy surrounding myself with really, really smart people. I'm very attracted to smart, and smart is on the professional side. My wife is an incredibly intelligent woman, even though her choice in men might be debatable. I've always said I owe my success to hiring people who are smarter than me.
Right.
Now, for me, that's not hard. For you, it might be a little easier.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's great. Well, yeah, I mean, there's several people now. The president of Walters Kluwer CCH, Teresa McIntosh. You hired her to Thompson Creative Solutions originally.
And so, and I rest my case. I always hire people who are way smarter than I am.
She's done quite well.
She's doing very, very well.
Yeah, and I think back to the magazine when you were the executive editor, you just built a team of really good writers and just made the content in that really be readable and good.
Well,
so.
the idea there, and we've kind of done this in other areas, and I've seen you do the same thing, is together we're stronger than any one of us individually.
Right.
So when we put together back then what we called the dream team, 9 people.
Right.
I was going to say guys, but there was a woman there, and I wish there would have been more. But 9 people, very, very well thought of, and high-end people with lots of great ideas. We put them all together, and all of us lent our reputation, and the reputation that we built as the magazine was bigger than any of us, and it all pulled us. So it was pretty magical the way that worked.
Do you have trouble letting go when you bring team together and then just let them do it, as opposed to and controlling every piece?
If you control every piece, you're going to have a really, really, really long life. Because what you will find, I believe, is that the people that you're trying to get on your team will very quickly just sit down and say, "Well, I have no more ideas," because you're going to do what you want anyway. So it's if you bring somebody on and then you let them learn. Now, sometimes you use the idea of natural and logical consequences.
Yeah.
So you don't teach a 2-year-old to not run in the street by letting him run in the street. That's because they'll get run over and they'll that's a bad way to learn.
Yeah.
So you don't let your team do things that are horrible. But
Yeah, makes sense. So, well, I also know you've done a lot with high school and coaching a speech team and so forth. Tell me what that's all about and what
I've discovered speech and specifically oral what's called oral interpretation, and theater back
Right.
in high school. I discovered that I played football for a while, and then I discovered that the girls in theater were softer and spelled better. So I kind of went that way. So that's been an avocation for a long time, and I've been a volunteer speech coach at the
Right.
local high school that I attended for 20 plus years, and I get to work with incredibly high-end kids,
Yeah.
just incredibly hardworking kids that are very, very talented.
Mhm.
A couple of weeks, I'll take 11 of them to the national tournament.
Right.
So we do
National.
very, very, very well.
Right.
And these kids work amazingly hard, and they're learning a life skill,
Right.
the presentation life skill that will serve them wherever they go.
Yeah.
And I watch these kids, after they're out of high school and they go on to college. And in fact, I introduced you to one of
That's right.
my kids,
Yeah.
Shilpa Chandran, who's now a junior at
Shilpa's
Georgetown. She will be either president or CEO of one of the Fortune 500s, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Incredibly bright kids. And that was a great night. We had a great dinner.
Yeah.
You and I and some business people and a bunch of high-end college kids.
Right.
Just great
Yeah.
dinner.
In high school, I did speech and debate, and I know that for me personally, that really has made a difference in my life. I didn't even know. In fact, I would advise all high school students to do something in
Right.
learning to present.
Yep.
And having a coach that will just take that extra interest in helping criticize how you're saying it, what you're saying, how you're structuring your thoughts.
Right.
Fantastic stuff. So that's great that you've done that.
And I'll tell you, my kids are way more talented at presentation than I am.
Yeah.
I did a keynote last year, and there was a link to it. It was because it was online, so I gave it to my kids to watch,
Right.
and they just hooted and howled and wrote page and page after page of notes on oh, Mr. LaFollette, you need to change this.
Yeah. But even though I might think I'm going to go and be in the accounting profession, which is this very cerebral job that I'll have for my life, why would I need to learn to present?
No, you're going to be in the people profession. I don't know. It doesn't matter what you're going to do. You have to, in whatever you do, you have to be able to convey your ideas to another person.
Right.
In some fashion.
Right.
Even if you're digging ditches, you got to talk to the guy next to you to,
Sure.
And the better you are at that, the more successful you're going to be in whatever career you're in.
Yeah.
Especially in public accounting, because public accounting has everything to do with people and not very much to do with numbers.
Well, speaking of being able to present well, and you're always going to be in the people business
Sure.
and all, one of the things I did when I first started my practice was I joined the local chamber of commerce, and then, the Sleeter group has built a community of professionals.
Right.
Some people might say, well, they're your competitors. Why would you go and, join a community of competitors? I found quite the opposite. But tell me about your thoughts on the whole community that we live in and
Yeah.
help each other with.
So I also joined the Chamber of Commerce, and it was very, very important for building a business
Right.
40 years ago,
Right.
because of the way that we practiced. Now, because of the idea of specialization, I'm still a member of the Chamber of Commerce,
Sure.
and I would still belong to the Chamber of Commerce, but for different reasons.
Right.
I'd be a part of a community, and I wish that my fellow CPAs and practicing accountants in general
Right.
would be more active in community. So the Sleeter Group's got a great community of advisors and consultants out there. And I mean, obviously at the AICPA and state societies and associations, but by and large, accountants haven't built this idea of, here's a problem, how do I do that? That it's coming and it's getting better, but anytime that happens, everybody is better off.
Right.
I stole a word from somebody, I don't know who, but the word that I stole was co-opetition.
Sure. Yeah.
And so we've done this thing at CPA to Biz. I actually did it before I joined CPA to Biz. Pulled together a group of the executives of all of the different software companies that serve the profession.
Right.
And when I did it the first time, I think I had like 15 people in a room. I had no idea what the heck we were going to do.
Yeah.
I just somehow, viscerally, I knew it was a good idea.
Yeah.
To get them
Smart
all in the
people
same
in the
room,
room.
and they loved it.
Yeah.
They talked to each other, and and we learned. And different people said, "Oh, you do that, I can do this. Let's do this together." And there was lots of things. We started there. We're now. In fact, you were in New York when we did that in January. We had 70-some people. I think we had 51 CEOs
Yeah.
in a room for 2 days,
Right.
talking about how can we do things together.
Right.
How can we be better as a community in
Right.
serving the practice of public accounting?
Yeah.
That's cool. And we built that community simply by running around to one of them and saying, "You should come, Doug,"
Yeah.
and then run over to the next one and say, "You should come because Doug's coming." And we just kind of built that, and now it's the can't miss
Yeah.
event.
Yeah, I actually find that in the digital world we live in, it's the personal interaction, the actual getting together at conferences or these events that you're talking about are even more important than they ever have been.
Right.
Even the video meetings, I like them. I'm doing them a lot too.
Right.
We've even done this show remotely with several guests, and
Sure.
so because it serves us well, it's cheaper. You don't have to get on airplanes and
Right.
all that stuff, but still, getting face to face, going out and having a beer after the thing, those things really matter, and I think we all miss it in the
Yep.
profession without it.
Well, I think high tech calls for high touch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we used to go to trade shows and conferences and things to learn the latest about some technology.
Right.
And now, frankly, you can learn more on the internet about a new technology than
Sure.
you can at a trade show by far.
Yeah.
But I can't meet people. I can't have the hallway conversations.
Right.
But even that's building.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn communities and,
Yep.
back 25, 30 years ago, we had bulletin boards
Yeah.
where people would help. And if there's one thing I could give to the profession would be go out and get involved and help somebody. Just, you look at it, somebody's posted a question and they go, whatever the question happened to be, and you know the answer to that, reach out to them and help them.
Yeah.
Pay it forward
Right.
kind of stuff,
Right.
because it does come back, makes the whole, engineers, we're sitting just, up the street from Silicon Valley, and engineers do this in an amazing fashion. They help each other all over the world all the time.
Yeah, there's these web bulletin
Right.
boards that you want to know something about a particular language or web
Right.
development,
Yep.
and they're helping each other with
Yep.
sample code even
Exactly.
back and forth.
Exactly.
They don't even flinch with
Right.
giving it away.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah, that's a neat development of the world in general and technology in specific.
But in some ways, Doug, it's a little bit like this idea that when we were talking about super specialization, sometimes clients would look and say, well, I don't want you to serve another client that's in my business because that would be competition. That's old style stuff.
Yeah.
And now they're going, I want somebody who specializes, very, very,
Right.
very narrow in just exactly what I do, and they know everything there is to know about it.
Right.
You know?
Right. If you were a CFO at a mid-sized company,
Uh-huh.
would you be tempted to go out into public practice, knowing what you know about the difference between the two today?
If I were a young CPA
Mm-hmm.
coming out of school, just gonna either go work for somebody or start
Yeah.
a practice, I think I would start a practice immediately.
Yeah.
I think the days of, with all the tools that we've got and
Right.
all the ways to do it, I think you could be so successful. I mean,
Yeah.
I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
And I have to throw in my new saying that I'm
Okay.
trying to get people to adopt.
Mhm.
For the last 5 years plus, we've been talking about cloud computing. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody's been to at least a dozen
Right.
cloud accounting
Right.
shows.
Right.
You have cloud accounting here and cloud accounting there, and you pick up a magazine and it's full of cloud accounting.
Mhm.
So I submit we're going to have a new word to describe that. Okay, you ready for the new
I'm ready.
word?
I'm ready.
We're going to call it accounting.
Ah, cool.
We're going to get rid of it.
Just
it's,
accounting.
It's
No,
accounting.
it totally makes sense.
It's just a technology.
Why are we using this word that doesn't make it different? It just is a new means to the end.
Yeah,
but
we
it's-
didn't call it floppy disk accounting or DVD accounting.
Right, exactly. So, well, since we're on that topic, what do you see in the future of accounting? Where's it all going?
You know, Yogi Berra, great line, you know, predictions are hard to make, especially about the future.
Yeah, right.
I think that eventually we will get to the point where technology allows us to use true double entry accounting.
Mm-hmm.
So when I make a sale to you, it's recorded. It's a sale for me, and it's a purchase for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's an entry somewhere that it lives
Right.
in the. Lives in the cloud, I guess. But that's an entry when you know when the money goes from your bank account, it's a credit on your bank account. It's a debit on mine. That's the debit and the credit.
Right, but only one of us made an entry.
Somebody made an entry.
Right.
Somebody originated an entry.
Right.
And I think that's where we're gonna get
Right.
to. And then the idea of accountants creating and interpreting, not creating data, but interpreting
Sure.
data for their clients, will be able, because of the horsepower and the access, will be able to reprocess an entire year's data in minutes.
Yeah.
And look and slice and dice however we want. So, the future is everything you need to know right now, and red light, green light, orange light. I don't need to look at compiled financial statements 6 weeks after the end of the month.
Yeah. So, for those who are in the transaction world, bookkeeping, that means a big change for them. What would they do today? If you're a bookkeeper today and your job is typing stuff in,
Well,
are you worried?
I'm not worried. There are some of them I'm not worried for.
Mm-hmm.
Because somewhere in America there's somebody who's making a living manufacturing buggy whips.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
don't know where,
Right.
but there's not nearly as many as there used to be.
Right.
So lots and lots and lots of things will be changing. That's obviously one of them. So there's a couple of parts of it. Number one, it's that becomes, the more automated it becomes, the more commoditized it becomes.
Mm-hmm.
The more commoditized it becomes, the higher the competition is. The higher the competition, the more we automate.
Yeah.
The more commodity it becomes. So that's a commodity business.
Right.
And frankly, there are very few people that go to college for 5 years, sit for and pass, one of the most rigorous professional tests in the world,
Right.
and say, I'm doing this so I can be a bookkeeper.
Yeah.
That's a job that won't be required. It'll certainly be required during the lifetimes of everybody who's practicing today.
Sure.
But eventually, probably not.
Yeah, it's like math is still something that we are required to learn, but we don't really use in our day. Most
Right.
of us don't.
Right.
But had we not had it, you
Well,
don't consider yourselves
you
educated.
use it in the back of your mind to double check that, does that make sense, or
Yes.
how does that work?
Right.
That sort of thing.
Yeah. So going back a little bit to what we were talking about, technology
Sure.
and the tools that we're using, and
Uh-huh.
we use so many things that aren't really debits and credits oriented at all,
Right.
their business process. So what can you tell me about apps or something that would really just resonate with how we're doing things that we could never have done? Your favorite app, your favorite way of doing business that you never imagined before.
Well, there are literally millions of apps,
Yeah.
and there's an app for everything. I think it's incumbent on us who are advising clients,
Mm-hmm.
or in our case, I guess, advising the people who advise clients, to help them understand that it's their responsibility to be aware of genres of
Right.
products. So, one of my favorite ones happens to be in the world of expense recording, because I spend some time on the road.
Sure.
So there's a whole bunch of them. I happen to use the TriNet Expense Cloud. There's Expensify and Tally, and there's a bunch of them in there.
Right.
And they're all really, really good.
Yeah.
But this idea of using the the power of your smartphone, the camera, the internet, the linkage, the synchronization,
Right.
to grab that data, have it fly up to
Yeah.
your space on the cloud, match it over with something else in your general ledger system,
Right.
take care of the whole thing. That's magic.
Yeah.
And you don't have to know, a practitioner doesn't have to know exactly how all of it works.
Right.
But they should know that exists so that they can go find out.
Well, right. This is part of what I call, leadership, becoming the leader for your client as
Mhm.
opposed to the servant for the
Right.
client. So lead the client down these, hey, did you know
Yep.
that there's a whole new way of solving this?
Yep.
So if a client has an expense reporting nightmare, which
Mhm.
many clients have, all these travelers and all this stuff coming in on credit cards and trying to figure, and bookkeepers are doing this all
Right.
day long and saying, well, I need your expense report. That's exactly the
cool.
kind of thing. Yeah.
So I used a favorite app.
Sure.
Yeah, because it was so darn helpful.
Yeah.
Yesterday when I was driving down here to see you, I had a conference call scheduled.
Right.
So California frowns on talking on the cell phone, so I might get my
Okay.
hands-free thing. But I had to connect to a conference call. When you dial a conference call, you dial the 10-digit number, then you dial a 10-digit code,
Oh,
then you dial some other. It's impossible.
Yeah, you can't.
So before I left SFO, I punched in this little app that I use that says, here's all the information for the conference call. Connect at 10 o'clock and call me. So I'm driving down the freeway, my phone rings, and I go click, and I'm on the conference call.
Ooh, that's
Now, that totally useless for
Yeah.
anything else. And
Yeah.
if you don't happen to have a conference call scheduled, it's not very valuable.
Yeah.
But for that, it's really, really
yeah.
valuable.
This is where they say there's an app for everything.
There's an app for everything.
Yeah. Well, Greg, you're nearing retirement, and so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you being here in the neighborhood
Right.
as one of your almost retirement activities.
I wasn't going to miss this.
Yeah, that's true. You couldn't miss it, and I'm sure I'll see you on the road, even into retirement. I'll come
Right.
and see your grandchildren and all.
Yeah.
But thanks for being here.
I'll see you at your conference. Thanks so
All
very
right,
much.
thank you. So thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you next time.